Good morning to you all. Today we'll be presenting our case analysis on Tran v Financial Debt Recovery Limited. Here I am Dalveen Kaur. We have Manveer Kaur, Geet Kaur and Diya Jindal with us. Firstly, I would walk you through a brief introduction to our case. The name of our case is Tran v Financial Debt Recovery Limited. The court that dealt with our case is Supreme Court of British Columbia and the final decision date is January 14, 2016. The plaintiff here is Hoa Tran, who is a Vietnamese refugee with limited English proficiency and receiving social assistance. Defendant in this case is Financial Debt Recovery Limited. So, in this case, a debt collection agency attempts to collect an alleged debt case. Tran receives several collection notices from FDR regarding a supposed debt to BC Hydro. In reaction to this, Tran disputed the debt and requested proof of the debt and detailed payment history from BC Hydro through FDR. After this, FDR failed to provide any requested proof or any satisfactory explanation regarding to the debt. Despite Tran's request and disputes, the FDR continued to send him the collection notice. After this, FDR commenced a legal action against Tran without even providing a prior notice or the requested proof of debt. Tran did not respond to the legal documents due to his limited English skills and lack of understanding to the legal processes. As a result, a default judgment was entered against him. This detailed factual and procedural background sets the stage for understanding the legal issues that the court needed to address in this case. Now, I would pass it over to Manvi to tell you further about the case.
Okay, now I'll be go through the issues in dispute. And the case Tran versus Financial Recovery Limited resolves around a dispute regarding debt collection practices and the validity of the debt in the question. Here is a breakdown of what is typically under consideration in such cases. Collection practices. The case likely examines whether Financial Recovery Limited adhere to legal and regulatory standards in their attempts to collect of the debt, and this can include examining their methods of communication, documentation provided, and any other potential harassment or misrepresentation. And now the next point is debt validation. The primary issue often concerns whether the debt being collected is legitimate and correctly attributed to the debtor, Mr. Tran, in this instance. And the next is damages and remedies. The nature and extent of damages claimed by Tran, including emotional distress, financial loss, and any statutory damages available under relevant laws, the appropriateness and the amount of any remedies or relief sought, including injunctive relief, monetary compensation, and punitive damages. Conduct of both parties. Both Tran and Financial Debt Recovery Limited throughout the debt collection processes has to be examined, and consideration of any potential contributory actions by Tran that might impact the outcome of the case. Now, the next point will be discussed by Diya Jindal.
Hi everyone, my name is Dia. In the case of Tran versus Financial Debt Recovery Limited, several key legal provisions were applied by the court to ensure justice and uphold consumer protection standards. These laws served as the backbone for regulating debt collection practices and safeguarding consumer rights. So now, when we dive into the laws that were practiced in this case by the court, we start by rule of legal principle, the overview of the rule of law. So, protection from abusive, deceptive, and unfair debt collection practices. Legislation as a Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, FDCPA, which played a major role in this case. And then we have the objective that is to ensure ethical debt collection and protect consumer rights. So, if we talk about harassment or abuse, the prohibition says debt collectors must not harass or abuse anyone in connection with the debt. Even if it's in the paperwork form, they are not allowed to do that by the law. Like use of any obscene or profane languages are not allowed. But when we go into the case of the Tran, the application, how this law was applied applied in this case was that Financial Debt Recovery Limited repeatedly contacted Tran. They repeatedly harassed him by sending him aggressive and intimidating threats of notices and the demands that he is not finishing his debt. Then, if we go to the false or misleading representations, the debt collectors cannot use false or deceptive or misleading representations, like falsely implying legal actions. So, it is not allowed. Especially the misinterpretation of the amount owed or the legal status of the debit. In the application with the Tran case, we can see that in the case the company falsely threatened legal action and wage garnishment without any legal basis that misled Tran about the consequences of non-payment. The payment that was made a debt of him is because the company did not follow proper rules. They misled him to a state where he was not able to pay that debt because they led him to there. Then, when we talk about unfair practices, debt collectors must avoid unfair or any means to collect a debt, like threatening actions that are not legally permissible or intended. So, in the for this application in trans case, we can see that Financial Debt Recovery Limited used unfair practices by making unauthorized threats, like the that were not authorized by the law, that were exerted on Tran, and that put him in a state of pressure. Then, if we dive into the deep understanding of legal principles, we can first talk about the balance of interest. Like there were two sides that the court has to heard. So, how did the court balance the interest? The case highlights the need to balance creditor's right to collect debts as well as the consumer's right to be free from abusive practices. What was the judicial role if we talk about? Judicial role demonstrates the judiciary's role in interpreting and enforcing consumer protection laws to ensure fair treatment. And consumer right, that emphasis, and the main was consumer right that was followed in this case, that was emphasizes the protection of consumers from undue pressure, false claims, and emotional harm in every debt efforts. So, as we see, the application of these laws in the Tran v versus this financial debt recovery case highlights the rebirth of legal framework designed to protect the consumer from unethical debt collection practices. It underscores the balance between allowing creditors to recover debts and ensuring that the customers are treated with fairness and respect. This case, the Strand versus the financial debt recovery case, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of these legal protections in maintaining integrity and justice in financial transactions. So now I'll be passing on to Keith for the conclusion.
Okay, so now I'll talk about financial debt and reasons behind it. First of all is contract law. Court often refer to a particular kind of contracting laws while adjusting debt recovery cases, and if the court find there is a valid and right contract between the debtor and creditor, then the court will assess the terms of the contract to be followed and rights of each party. Second one is evidence of debt. Court require the proof that a debt exists and it is due. The proof can include signed contracts, promissory notes, accountant statements, or many other documents that provide legal proof. Next one is precedents. Court often rely on previous decision given by the court to guide the ruling. Court even give look to the party such as past such cases and have a reference from that cases. Next one is bankruptcy laws. If the debtor has filed the bankruptcy, the court will consider the application under the bankruptcy laws, and debts may be discharged and creditors must follow specific criteria and other entitles.
So, in the end, the final decision was taken in the favor of Tran, finding that the collection agency's conduct was egregious. Then the court awarded Tran $25,000 in general damages for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional harm, interference with economic interest, and invasion of privacy. The collection agency's action were found to have caused significant emotional distress and damage to Tran's professional reputation. So thanks for having us. If you have any questions, they are all welcome. Thank you for being with us.